Let me ask you something. Would you recognize danger if it smiled at you? If it laughed at your jokes, complimented your haircut, and even brought you your favorite coffee? Most people wouldn't, and that's exactly what makes it so dangerous. The biggest threat in your life right now probably isn't the person who glares at you across the room. It's the one who seems charming, friendly, maybe even supportive while secretly wishing you'd disappear. Not just leave the room, gone, for good. Sounds extreme? Maybe, but reality often is. Scarier than any thriller because it hides in plain sight. Right now, someone could be quietly plotting your downfall, and you'd have no idea until the damage is already done. This isn't paranoia. It's psychology. Hatred is easy to see, but the smiling mask of subtle destruction, that's where most people get blindsided. This video isn't about fear. It's about awareness. It's about survival. Because once you understand these 5 psychological signs, you'll start noticing things you never saw before. Not conspiracy theories, real behavior patterns that could save your life or someone else's. So if you've ever had a gut feeling that something felt off about someone but couldn't explain why, stick around. By the end of this, you'll never look at friendly the same way again. Go ahead, hit that subscribe button. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Sign 1. The Silent Observer. Let's start with one of the most unsettling and dangerously subtle red flags. The silent observer. Now we're not talking about your average social media lurker or the nosy neighbor who peeks out their window every time you come home. This is different. This is calculated, intentional, and often malicious. The silent observer doesn't just watch you, they study you. They memorize your routine, your favorite coffee shop, your gym schedule, the time you usually walk your dog. They track your movements like a detective on assignment. And the creepiest part, they do it all without you noticing. At first, it seems harmless, coincidental even. They show up at the grocery store at the same time. You bump into them at the park again. But eventually, coincidence becomes consistency, and consistency becomes chilling. What makes the silent observer so dangerous is how easily their behavior can be dismissed. We've been conditioned to doubt ourselves, to brush off patterns as paranoia. But predators count on that hesitation. They thrive on your uncertainty. Let me tell you about Christine. She was a mid-level manager, smart, composed, independent. After a breakup with her ex, she started noticing him more often. At her gym, at the new cafe she tried, even at the gas station near her new workplace. She changed routines, changed locations, but he always reappeared, never aggressive, never confrontational, just there, watching. Her friends said he was obsessed, but Christine eventually realized something far more chilling. It wasn't obsession. It was premeditation. He wasn't trying to win her back. He was studying her. This behavior isn't about closure. It's not romantic. It's not even emotional. It's strategic. And it's often the first sign that someone doesn't just dislike you. They want you gone. And you might never know until it's too late. Silent observers and saboteurs. The hidden threat continues. Time, we uncover the unnerving presence of the silent observer, those who don't simply watch, but study you like a predator, masking their intentions behind a friendly smile. Now we turn our attention to what often comes next: manipulation, control, and subtle destruction. When control becomes a weapon, It's not about curiosity. It's about control, about eliminating uncertainty before making a move. Philosophers like Epictetus warned us not to be deceived by harmless appearances. A truly wise person is not just watchful of others, but deeply attuned to what disrupts their inner peace. When your sense of order is disturbed, especially by someone who seems to know too much or shows up too often without reason, it's not paranoia, it's a signal. In this hyper-connected world, surveillance no longer needs a van parked outside your house. It only takes social media access, mutual connections, and routines we carelessly share. The most dangerous people aren't the ones who scream in anger. They're the ones who smile while silently cataloging your every move. And that's what makes them lethal. This isn't about fear, it's about discernment. The Stoics taught us that wisdom begins with sharp observation and ends with decisive action. If someone consistently appears in your life without invitation or explanation, especially when you have made no effort to involve them, don't romanticize it. Don't call it fate. Call it what it is, a red flag. Recognize the pattern. Question the coincidences. Above all, trust your instincts, that discomfort in your gut. It's not overthinking, it's insight. When your spirit feels unsettled, don't talk yourself out of it. Honor it, because sometimes the people we should fear the most are not the ones who threaten us. They're the ones who study us in silence. Sign 2, the saboteur strategy. Now let's move into even darker territory, the saboteur. This isn't just manipulation, it's psychological warfare. You see, the saboteur doesn't shout. They whisper. They don't confront you, they infect you from the shadows. And their weapon of choice? Perception. Because here's a chilling psychological truth. When someone hears a lie about you, even after it's disproven, their subconscious still remembers it as partly true. That's how fragile our reputations can be. And that's what makes the saboteur strategy so utterly terrifying. These people aren't driven by momentary anger or jealousy. No, they operate like chess masters, cold, calculating, and patient. They don't want to hurt you temporarily. They want to erode your entire support system, piece by piece, until the floor beneath you collapses. They don't attack you directly. That would be obvious. Instead, they go after the people around you. To your boss, you're unreliable. To your friends, you've changed. To your partner, you've become distant. One comment here, a subtle suggestion there, always cloaked in concern. I'm just worried about them. Have you noticed they've been different lately? They plant doubt, then they wait. Because once that seed is in someone's mind, it takes root. And here's the most dangerous part. It spreads silently. No one sees the full picture. Not your friends, not your coworkers, not even you. The real-life saboteur, a quiet collapse. Take this true-to-life example. A woman named Sarah, respected, confident, and thriving in her career, suddenly started feeling the walls closing in. Her invitations to social events dropped off. Colleagues she once laughed with began offering tight-lipped smiles. Her boss stopped including her in key meetings. She had no idea what was happening until months later she discovered the truth. A colleague, once friendly, had been sowing doubt. One-on-one, he'd whisper that Sarah might be overwhelmed, unreliable, or burnt out. Nothing too loud, nothing too direct, just enough for others to question her, to pull back slowly. By the time she realized the damage was already done, not through confrontation, but through carefully orchestrated exclusion. That's the saboteur's genius. They don't burn bridges. They quietly dismantle them, one plank at a time. From a Stoic lens, the internal poison. To the Stoics, sabotage isn't just external damage, it's an internal test of clarity. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If someone can prove me wrong and show me my mistake in any thought or action, I shall gladly change, for it is the truth I seek." But what happens when the truth is twisted before it ever reaches you? The saboteur's power lies in deception, not of others, but of your own mind. They don't just challenge your actions, they cloud your identity. And that's what makes it so dangerous. It's not a wall you can climb. It's a fog that makes you question your direction, your instincts, your worth. Worse yet, when you try to speak up, to clarify, to defend your name, you often look guilty, you seem too defensive. And the more you talk, the more they watch with quiet satisfaction, because they know you're falling into the trap. How to protect yourself. See the pattern, break the cycle. So how do you fight back? Not with rage, not with denial, but with awareness. The saboteur operates in darkness. Your greatest weapon is light, clarity, composure, and the ability to stay anchored in who you are, even when others start to drift. Know this, you cannot control what others say behind your back, but you can control how solid you remain in front of them. Stay consistent, stay composed. Let your actions speak louder than their whispers, and above all, never stoop to their level. That's what they want, for you to break character. Because once you act out of anger or desperation, they win. The saboteur is terrifying not because they're loud, but because they're invisible. They don't need proof. They just need a moment of your doubt. So don't give it to them. Hold the line. Let your integrity do the talking. Sign 3. The false friend facade. Just when you think it can't get more deceptive, it does. This next sign doesn't roar like a lion. It purrs like a kitten. It doesn't come wearing armor or fangs. It comes in soft smiles, understanding nods, and the illusion of warmth. And that's what makes it so lethal. This is the mask of the false friend, perhaps the most insidious of all. They don't break your trust with betrayal. They earn your trust with intention. They arrive suddenly, as if fate dropped them into your path. They seem to get you right away. They ask thoughtful questions. They remember little details. They laugh when you laugh, cry when you cry. And in that moment, you think you've found a true connection. But what you've really found is a skilled manipulator, not building trust, building access. The false friend doesn't rush in because they're excited about your soul. They rush in because they see an opportunity. They want access to your life, your schedule, your circle, your habits, your wins, and more importantly, your wounds. They disguise curiosity as compassion. They'll listen to your childhood stories, your deepest insecurities, your dreams, and your fears, not to support you, but to study you. They want to know where you're vulnerable, because one day they'll need that information, not today, maybe not even this year. But when the mask slips, they'll weaponize what you gave them in trust. This isn't paranoia. This is pattern recognition, a real-life story when care becomes control. Consider this example. After a painful breakup, Jason met Mark, seemingly a breath of fresh air. Mark listened without judgment, checked in daily, offered to help with errands, introduced him to new people, even loaned him money during a tough month. Jason felt supported for the first time in years, but over time things shifted. Mark became possessive, subtle at first jokes about who Jason spent time with, passive-aggressive remarks when Jason didn't respond quickly. Then came the ultimatums. If I hadn't been there for you when no one else was, you'd be lost. If you really appreciated me, you'd choose me over them. Jason realized this wasn't friendship. It was surveillance, emotional debt disguised as generosity. What felt like empathy turned out to be control. The Stoic lens, slow trust is strong trust. Seneca once wrote, "A friend is someone you trust with your soul, but trust must be earned, not given to anyone who simply listens. False friends don't earn trust. They fast-track it. And that should always raise a red flag." Stoicism teaches us to remain grounded in reason, not emotion. Not cold or cynical, but cautious. True friendship grows in seasons, not in a single storm. It proves itself in quiet consistency, not grand gestures. A real friend respects your pace. They don't pry into your privacy or rush intimacy. Guard your boundaries like your peace depends on it, because it does ask yourself, why are they this interested, this quickly? What are they offering that feels too good to be true? Are they truly listening or are they collecting? Trust isn't something you give away like candy. It's something you grant over time with careful discernment. You don't owe anyone full access to your inner life just because they showed up with a smile. You owe yourself the space to observe before you invest, because the most dangerous people don't always come to destroy. Sometimes they come to blend in. And by the time you realize what they are, they've already memorized your blueprint. The false friend doesn't just break your heart. They study it first. So the next time someone appears in your life like a savior, like a soulmate, like someone who just gets you, pause, reflect, discern, because not everyone who seems like a safe harbor isn't also marking the coastline for invasion. Sign 4, escalating aggression. This next sign doesn't shake the ground at first. It doesn't scream, it whispers. And that's what makes it chilling. Escalating aggression doesn't explode. It seeps, slowly, deliberately. It's not the slap, it's the silence that comes before it. Not the shove, but the smile that cloaks it. It starts with something easy to dismiss, a joke that's just a little too dark, a compliment that leaves you feeling unsettled, a stare that lingers a moment too long. But make no mistake, these are not random slips of the tongue or awkward social errors. They're not about humor. They're about control. Every off-color remark, every inappropriate touch, every microaggression is a test. Can I make you uncomfortable and get away with it? Can I scare you and watch you pretend it didn't happen? That's the question they're really asking. And if you flinch and stay silent, they take note. Aggression by design, breaking down boundaries. These individuals don't kick the door down. They study how to open it quietly. They don't start with violence. They start with desensitization. Like water dripping on stone, they condition you over time. First they test, then they escalate. What begins as a joke about violence becomes a backhanded threat. A dismissive gesture becomes a deliberate invasion of space. And before you know it, they're crossing lines you didn't even know were there. That's the trap. They move so slowly that by the time you realize you're unsafe, you're already deep in the maze. A real story. 2 years of little things. Consider Sarah. a high-performing marketing executive. When her new manager Tom joined the company, he was charismatic, even charming. He praised her work, gave her opportunities, invited her to elite meetings. She felt seen, valued. But things shifted. He began making inappropriate comments, veiled as jokes. If I weren't your boss, I'd ask you out. You're lucky I like you, or I'd make your life hell. When she objected, he'd laugh. Relax, it's just a joke. You know, I don't mean it. Then came the pressure. Late night texts about projects that didn't exist. Physical proximity in meetings. Hands resting just a little too long. HR dismissed her claims. Moving actionable, they said. Until one day after she was passed over for a promotion, she found an anonymous note in her desk drawer. You should smile more. You're prettier when you're quiet. She installed a hidden camera at her desk. 2 weeks later, she caught Tom rifling through her drawers after hours. He was terminated. But the emotional scars, they took years to undo. That's what escalating aggression does. It chips away at your peace, your voice, your reality. The Stoic mind recognized the rising fire. The Stoics didn't teach us to fear the storm. They taught us to see it coming. Seneca wrote, "He who is forewarned is forearmed." Stoicism is not about ignoring darkness. It's about not being surprised by it. It's about standing firm in awareness, even when others tell you you're too sensitive or overreacting. Because silence in the face of aggression isn't strength, it's surrender. When someone crosses your boundaries and then laughs, don't laugh with them. When their words feel like veiled threats dressed up as humor, don't pretend not to notice. When they watch your reactions more than they engage your humanity, don't mistake that for interest. It's surveillance. Warning signs, not coincidences. Let's be clear. Someone who tests your fear is planning to exploit it. Someone who studies your schedule is rehearsing control. Someone who pushes just to see if you push back is not a friend, a coworker, or a romantic prospect. They are a threat. And the sooner you recognize that, the stronger your defense becomes. Aggression doesn't always knock at the door. It often seeps in through the cracks. It hides behind laughter, behind compliments, behind "it's just a joke." But your intuition knows. That tightness in your chest, that sense that something isn't quite right, that's not paranoia. That's wisdom whispering. Listen to it. Trust it. Because the greatest danger isn't the act itself, it's how long we're willing to pretend it's not happening. Sign 5. The patient predator. Now we arrive at perhaps the most terrifying sign of all. Not the one who shouts, not the one who storms in with fists raised or fury blazing, but the one who waits, the patient predator. They don't show their teeth, they show their smile, not out of warmth, but out of calculated restraint. This is not chaos. This is precision. This isn't rage. This is ritual. And what makes them so dangerous isn't what they do. It's how long they're willing to wait before they do it. Cold calculation, wrapped in warmth. The patient predator studies you, not in days, but in seasons. They embed themselves into your life through favor, familiarity, and false security. They aren't looking for a moment to strike. They're building a stage, and you're the unsuspecting performer. While others erupt, the patient predator evolves. While others burn bridges, they build them carefully, only to burn them when it hurts most. They ask about your schedule, not to help, but to know when you're alone. They learn your preferences, not to connect, but to manipulate. They show up when others don't, not because they care, but because loyalty creates leverage. This isn't affection, it's architecture. They're constructing your trust one quiet act at a time. A chilling true story, years in the making. Consider Maria. She met James through a volunteer group. He was charming, funny, always available when she needed help. When her father passed, James was there. When her car broke down, he was there. When she lost her job, James lent her money, refused repayment. Over 5 years, he became her rock. He knew everything, her fears, her passwords, her routines. He even helped install her home security system. Then one night, while she was traveling, her neighbor called. Her house was unlocked. Nothing was stolen, but the camera footage was gone. Maria checked her backup system offline. The only person who had access? James. When she confronted him, his demeanor changed instantly. Cold, flat, like a mask removed. He said, "You think I didn't know you'd ask questions? I've been 10 steps ahead of you since the day we met." The police later uncovered years of digital surveillance, hidden listening devices, and a spreadsheet detailing her life hour by hour. The Stoic lens, discipline without virtue is corruption. What's chilling is how this predator mimics the Stoic ideal. Patience, strategy, mastery of emotion. But without morality, these traits become monstrous. Seneca warned, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is unprepared for the storms of life." The patient predator turns your calm into their cover. They weaponize your trust, your peace, your rhythms. And because they're so quiet, so helpful, you begin to doubt your own gut. You say, "They've always been there for me. They wouldn't do that. Maybe I'm just being paranoid." That's not paranoia. That's the early warning system of your soul. Listen to it. Recognize the pattern. Reclaim your power. Here's what to watch for. Sudden over-involvement without context. Too many personal questions wrapped in concern. A lack of boundaries hidden behind loyalty. Help that feels a little too persistent, too polished. Remember, trust should be earned by consistency, not speed. Not every listener deserves your truth. Not every helper has good intentions. The patient predator doesn't force the door open. They wait for you to hand them the keys. Their kindness is strategic. Their silence is tactical. And their timing is always perfectly wrong, just when you think they're the one person you can count on. But there's power in awareness. Once you see the pattern, I'm a pattern, you can stop the play. Once you name the danger, it loses its grip. So protect your peace, trust your instincts, and never confuse time spent with trust earned. Up next, the final sign, and it's not about what others do to you, but what you unknowingly do to yourself. Final warning, the mask behind the smile. They could be the one who remembers your birthday better than your own family, the one who sends encouraging text, smiles at your success, but behind their calm exterior is a mind-rehearsing betrayal like a script. Epictetus warned us that the greatest threat isn't what we see, it's what we overlook. We assume fairness rules the world, but predators play by a different set of laws. He wrote, "First, say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." In other words, don't assume everyone around you plays fair. Some play to win, at any cost. The scariest part? These people rarely slip up. They wait for you to slip, for your routine to break, for your defenses to lower. Then they strike. And because you trusted them, you never saw it coming. So what can you do? Be slow to hand out deep trust, especially when someone accelerates closeness without a clear reason. Guard your boundaries like your peace depends on it, because it does. You can be kind, but don't confuse kindness with blind access. The stoic in you must stay awake even when nothing seems wrong, especially when nothing seems wrong. Let's be brutally honest. If any of these five signs made you think of someone, don't brush it off. Don't convince yourself you're being dramatic. If you've seen the silent observer, the saboteur, the false friend, the escalating aggressor, or the patient predator in your life, you're not just facing negativity. You're standing in the crosshairs of something much darker. So before this video ends, do two things. First, save it. You may need to revisit these signs the next time your instincts whisper something's off. Second, watch our next video on spotting covert narcissists, because these five signs, they often walk hand in hand with deep, manipulative personalities. Remember, knowledge is your first shield, but action is what keeps you alive. Stay sharp, stay guarded, and above all, stay alive. If your gut has been whispering that something isn't right, this video may have just confirmed what you didn't want to hear, but deeply needed to. These signs aren't about creating drama. They're about survival. Because someone who simply hates you might roll their eyes, but someone who wants you gone, they study, they smile, they sabotage, they escalate, and they wait. That's not petty. That's predatory. So if one particular nice person came to mind while watching this, don't ignore it. Your instincts exist for a reason. As the saying goes, the devil doesn't come dressed in horns. He comes wrapped in everything you ever wanted to trust. If this hit a little too close to home, do two things right now. Subscribe to this channel so you stay one step ahead, and share this video with someone who might be in the dark. Because knowledge is your first line of defense, but sharing it, that might just save a life. Stay sharp, stay safe, and remember, it's not paranoia if they're actually planning your downfall. Trust wisely, and I'll see you in the next one.